What's up, y'all? This is Lou. So, right now, let's discuss a common trope in debate in terms of when we get into the area of left versus right. The reason why I wanted to cover this real quick is because I recently just watched the episode of Timcast where Tim Pool had on Emma Vigeland. And I noticed a trope that Tim kept using over and over again where it was like he was misrepresenting what was leftism and using it to posture himself as being more left than Emma, uh, based on ideological principles. And the problem is that ideologically speaking, the arguments didn't really hold up. And this is something that I see quite often in terms of when a person is not very familiar with the Overton window outside of the United States, and ideologically speaking, what leftism or right-wing ideological positions really consist of. So, sorry for the hiccup there. My brain's going fast. I just finished watching the whole entire thing. I've only seen clips. So I wanted to get this while it's still fresh in my head. But basically what Tim would do is he would say something to Emma like, well, do you think Biden should be removed from office because of corruption with Burisma? And she would say, I don't think that's a thing. And he'd say, but it is. But it absolutely is. 100% it is. We have video. Blah, 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 blah. So, you know, like, people like that talk very fast. And I've always been skeptical of that, even though I do try my best to slow myself down, but if I don't, my videos are gonna go very long. So, and Emma would say, "I don't think that's a thing." He would say, "It is a thing," and she would say, "Well, there's not enough evidence for me to think that it's an actual thing." And he'd say, "Why are you defending Biden? I thought you were a leftist." First of all, being a leftist isn't being a partisan hack. It doesn't mean that we unequivocally defend or attack other people just based on their existence. What it means is that we have certain political principles and we do our best to structure our politics around those ideas. Leftists disagree all the time, but Biden's not a leftist. Biden's barely a liberal. I think he's been pulled more left by the Progressive Caucus, but he's barely a liberal. Like in the times of my mom, you know, in her youth, Biden would have been considered a conservative Democrat. He'd have been another Manchin. And a lot of people say that's exactly what he was throughout most of his career, and that's why he and Manchin get along so well. So, but Emma wasn't even unwilling to attack Biden. She was just unwilling to attack Biden on that. And Tim was trying to use that. Well, I thought you were leftist. I thought you were anti-corruption. And she's like, I have to see evidence of the corruption if you want me to condemn him for that point. But what I will do is say that I disagree with all these other things. He did this later with the Ukraine war. You know, like, well, you're a leftist, you're anti-war, right? And she'd say, yes. And he'd say, well, but you think America should be intervening in Ukraine? And she'd say, yes. And he'd say, but then you're pro-war. Then you're to the right of me, because I don't think that should be happening at all. No, Tim, you're an imperialist. Well, at least in that context. You're so much of a libertarian that you don't mind imperialism so long as it's not happening to your own country. Which America used to carry that sentiment. A lot of libertarians have what I call like isolationist ideologies. You know, they think they do pander to American exceptionalism and the idea of, you know, manufacture everything in America, bring everything back to America, do everything within America, do everything inside America, and da-da-da-da. But we made they had a whole discussion about a treaty and whether or not that should even be honored, but that's not necessarily a left versus right contention, unless it's not that right are pro-war and left are anti-war. It's that most people should kind of be anti-war unless they like the military-industrial complex and just think that everyone who's not American in the world should be killed. Or assimilated into, one world government type thing, which they're not supposed to like. But that's a misrepresentation of what it means to be a leftist, and trying to say, well, you're not as left as me because I agree with this broad statement that is generally associated with leftism, as if there's no such thing as nuance. There's a such thing as nuance. Do we want a war between Ukraine and Russia? No. But if Russia invades Ukraine, does Ukraine have a right to defend itself? Yes. Should we intervene? Yes, because we made a treaty to. Whether you think that treaty should have been made or not, that's neither here nor there. The fact is it exists, and if we don't do it now, then there's no reason. Geopolitics is like a very messy thing. Like, it goes beyond. If you think domestic politics is messy, geopolitics is worse. So you really don't want to sacrifice too many poker chips at the geopolitical table. So what I'm getting at is, if you're on the left, what you need to understand is that centrists and center-right and far-right people will do this to you to try to make you seem like you don't abide by your principles. They'll try to say, well, in this context, you don't agree with what should be the leftist thing. They don't get to tell you what the leftist thing should be. You are a leftist. Leftism generally is about the working class and minorities and the ability of collective existence in terms of like protecting vulnerable people. So yeah, supporting the war in Ukraine, it kind of is leftist, because what it is it should be a battle between imperialism and anti-authoritarianism. Now, does the U.S. have a bad habit of inflicting austerity on countries once we help them militarily? Yes, but that's something that we actually have some ability to vote on domestically. So that shouldn't necessarily be a deterrent to helping the Ukraine. Now, do I also think we should be doing the same thing for other countries? Yeah, of course. It should be a more broad policy that if one country is being imperialist towards another country, we should intervene if we can. If that's what we're doing as a country. Do I think that America should be the arms dealer of the world? Not necessarily. And if so, it should be a lot better regulated. But you can make those arguments and still be a leftist. Like, don't ever let anyone tell you that, oh, I'm more left than you, because that's nonsense, and they know that. They know that they're not actually on the left. Like, they're just trying to make you seem like your ideas falter in certain contexts. And all you need to do is know how to say, well, no, as a leftist, this is what I think, and it aligns with leftism in this manner. This has been Lou, on your left.